we're just going to get started. Before we hop into things, it's always nice to put a name to a face. So my name is Mekayla, and I'm representing Advantage Learn this evening. We also have Chanelle on with us this evening. Chanelle, do you want to hop on and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chanelle Peverett, and I'm resident on the West Rand. I see someone's from Boksburg. I'm actually an ex-East Rander, went to Springs Girls High School. So for the Boksburg person, you'll know where that is. And it's really a pleasure for me to be online this evening to chat to you about further studies English, something that's very close to my heart, which I've been teaching since its inception in 2010. And I'll be giving you some information a little bit later in this presentation, some details, but please feel free to ask any questions, raise your hands at any stage. Thanks, Mekayla.
Lovely. That's perfect. So as we go this evening, guys, please feel free to use the Q&A since the chat is not working well for us. Pop your questions in the Q&A. If it makes sense for us to answer it at that point in time, we will. Otherwise, we'll save it for the Q&A session at the end, and we'll answer all your questions then. So as you think of them, feel free to pop them in the Q&A. And between Chanelle and Norm, who's on supporting us this evening, they will make sure that I pay attention to the Q&A if it's important for us to answer it then and there. Cool. So just some context as to who Advantage Learn is. We are an online education company, but we're focused on blended learning in the STEM learning space specifically, but we also focus on some additional subjects. So we focus our attention on assisting schools and learners and parents. So we have a couple of people who we're trying to help in South Africa and even beyond. We have a couple of things that we do to support students and parents and schools, and that is our self-study resources in maths and science. We've got NBT preparation where we assist learners, and Chanelle is actually an educator in that space, in the NBT preparation space for us. We also have further study subjects, which I won't bore you on yet because we're going to get into that right now in a second, but also we have exam preparation, and exam preparation is cool because we have a couple of additional subjects in that space. So outside of our maths and physical science, we also have life sciences available in that space. We've got accounting available in that space. And so we're supporting learners in a couple of different areas there. And most recently, we've partnered with Chanelle and her team at Learn to Link in English Olympiad, which is also part of exam preparation offerings. So I know Chanelle will explain that a little bit later because it does tie in with further studies English. But yeah, if anyone is interested or is already registered for the English Olympiad, you can either join us for English Olympiad preparation specifically, or you can partner with us and you can register to take the English Olympiad through us. Okay, yes, Lindsay, 100%. Exam preparation is a great one to look into. Yes, I'll explain a little bit more on that note later on. I'll leave your question upside, don't forget. Okay, so let's get into further studies. Further study subjects are an exciting bunch of subjects or programs rather. Before we get started, some people really find it helpful to know what we're going to be covering up front. So we're going to be looking into what further studies is for those of you who are not fully aware of that. We're also going to be delving into our philosophy towards what the further study subjects are and how they kind of apply to real life scenarios. We've also got why you should take further studies, who should be taking a further study subject for those of you wondering if this is the right choice for you. And then we'll go into the 3 further study subjects that we offer, which is further studies maths, physics, and English. We've also got a number of further studies learning streams. So similar to what we're doing now so that we can connect all together, we've got some live online options, online course options, and then also in-person options for our further studies learning streams. And then we've got just a section on how we support you in this space. And we'll go into a couple of other things and we'll end off with the Q&A right at the end. So stick around for that Q&A, but also just to get into more detail on these awesome subjects. And it's nice to know that everyone is excited for a number of different subjects this year. Before we hop into further studies, I also want to welcome a number of schools that are here this evening joining us. So welcome to those of you joining us from St. John's DSG, from Epworth, from Southern Cross College, from Hatfield Christian Center, and from Stain City we're excited to have you guys on this evening as well, and representatives from that school, from those schools on as well this evening. Okay. Cool. So before we get into more details on the programs, for those of you who don't know what the further studies programs are, that might be because they recently underwent a name change. So formerly they were advanced programs, and they're now known as further studies programs. So I'm going to take things back a little bit further and speak to ad maths and things of that nature. I think some of the parents who are on this evening might remember ad maths. Ad maths was essentially a DBE administered subject, and that was closed off. And then the advanced programs were born out of the IEB. So advanced programs are IEB subjects. And recently this year, they changed the name to further studies. So don't let that confuse you. If you previously were aware of advanced programs, further studies is essentially the same thing with some minor changes, which have just made the programs even more beneficial to learners who are taking them. Okay, so one of the changes that the IEB made was something called ISC certification. So essentially, they established a new division called IEB International. And we'll speak to some of the international relevant reasons why you might want to be taking a further study subject a little bit later. But that is why the IEB determined that they were going to create an international area within the space. We've also got the name change. So essentially the advanced programs was one specific certification, and they changed the advanced program certification to something known as International Secondary Certificate. So if you have a child, if you're a parent who had a child who took advanced programs, don't fear. The IEB really just wanted to make it more clear that these subjects were internationally recognized, but they always have been and will be to follow. So hopefully that makes things a little bit clearer. Within the ISC are further studies programs, as I mentioned. It's important to note that these programs, just like the advanced programs were, are benchmarked globally by the UK ENIC, and they are comparable to GCE A-levels. So if you're aware of A-levels and the UK qualification, these subjects have been benchmarked to be comparable to those important subjects. It does just mean that they are more widely internationally recognized. Okay, Chanelle, go for it. I know you want to add something in there.
Mekayla, just to add to that, the further studies English component, the South African version, actually goes a step further than the A-level literature for the Cambridge offering, because we have a film study element that is not in that other syllabus. They do only prose, novels, and drama, which are your plays, and then poetry, which is everything we do. But we also have film study as well as part of our bouquet that we offer. But I just mentioned that.
That is amazing. Yeah, incredible. Okay, so further studies programs, as you can hear, are highly beneficial programs. And then just to explain a little bit more about these, essentially the further studies programs are taught from younger grades. So for further studies maths, you start in grade 10. For further studies physics, you'll start in grade 11. And for further studies English, you can start as early as grade 9. However, in order to achieve your certificate, that certificate is achieved in your grade 12 year. So similar to your NSC certificate that you'll write at the end of your grade 12 year, the IEB certificate, in order for you to receive that certificate for taking a further studies subject, you'll write that exam in grade 12 and you'll qualify for that certificate in grade 12, assuming that you have you've achieved a pass rate on that qualification. And then we've also got the fact that the further studies programs cover university level concepts. So that's an important one to note. Essentially, for those of you looking to explore very specific career fields, a lot of these subjects can assist in those areas. We will get into which sort of careers might be, or rather which university degree programs will be more specific towards each of the further studies programs, because there are a number of them a little bit later. But it's important to note that these programs go beyond your school subject, so your standard core school subjects, and you can hear that also from Chanelle, what she mentioned regarding further studies English. Okay, so the further studies programs that the IEB has available at the moment are further studies, I've just skipped a bit further studies maths, further studies physics, further studies English, and further studies Afrikaans. Here at Advantage Learn, and in partnership with Learn to Link on the further studies English side, we offer these 3 of the 4 programs. Further studies Afrikaans isn't really one that a lot of people have opted to take this year and in previous years. I think, Chanelle, you were mentioning earlier that last year there were only 2 learners who chose to take that program. So just from an international standpoint, yeah, Chanelle, go for it.
Yes, that's correct, Mekayla. Sorry, I was actually just wanting to do a thumbs up, but the blonde couldn't get that quite right. So while I'm online, though, I'm sure some of you have questions around, okay, why can we start further studies English in grade 9 already? And the reason for that is we've aligned it with the English Olympiad. In the past, I've been teaching, training students to write the English Olympiad now for 27 years. And for that amount of time, only students in grades 10, 11, and 12 were eligible to write that examination. And we've always used English Olympiad as a way of attracting students into the further studies program. And at the beginning of last year, or I think it was the year before, grade 9s are now allowed to enter and register to write the English Olympiad. So we thought it was a no-brainer, and it made sense for us to open the program then, the further studies English program course, to our other students who are doing Olympiad as well, because the grade 9s were going, pick me. And I was going, okay, we'll pick you. So that's the reason why we've allowed grade 9s into the program as well. Okay, thanks, Mekayla.
Lovely. Yeah. So these are the 3 of those 4 subjects that we do have available. And we are going to now just step into each of the 3 subjects. For those of you who raised your hands for further studies maths, we will start with that. But before we get into that, we like to go through our philosophy towards further studies programs. So further studies programs are very specific types of subjects. So they are learners who are doing incredibly well in their core subjects who will choose to take further studies. And there are some things that we like you to know and parents to be aware of. And then there are also learners who maybe consider themselves to be more average performers who will be joining further studies programs, and then we'll also chat to that in a second. So our further studies philosophy is essentially that further studies subjects are there to challenge and extend learners. So they're not there to prove that learners are capable of achieving incredible and high results. They're there to challenge you and to extend you, to grow you from a mindset perspective, to help you cope with some additional items on top of your core subjects. And we find that those benefits outweigh marks. So for those of you who are used to achieving 90s for maths and that sort of thing, and are expecting to hop onto further studies maths and achieve 90s, you might be disappointed. And this is just a fair warning. And that's not to deter you from taking the subject, but it's to say that there's more benefits to the subject outside of just achieving high results. So parents and learners expect your results to go down, to take a bit of a hit. I know, for example, in further studies maths, a mark of 50% is an excellent achievement in that space, for example. And so, we want you to be aware of that, but also to not view it as a negative thing. For a lot of learners who are high achievers, it can be difficult to process achieving lower results than what you're used to achieving. And this is a great way to also just grow in that area and just to be able to challenge yourself further than what your school subjects are challenging you. It's really, really beneficial from a growth perspective. You might also consider yourself to be an average performing student and you hop into a further studies program and really excel in this space. And we found that often that's because some of the learners who don't necessarily achieve 90s and that sort of thing in school are really just not challenged enough. And so this is a great way for you to challenge yourself and really just pull out your true potential. And so marks are not the number one thing, whether you're high achieving in further studies or not really achieving what you would consider to be high results. That's not the benefit of the program. And yeah, we just wanted to make that nice and clear. Oh yeah, Chanelle, go for it.
Mekayla, if I could just clarify that from a further studies English perspective, and this is not to scare anyone off because we're wanting to attract you into the program, but if you're, for example, achieving an A at English home language level, you may actually end up at initially only achieving a C and be in the 60s. And it's because we're challenging you to write an academic essay, because our primary purpose with further studies English is to prepare you for a tertiary institution. And students who've gone off to varsity come back to us and say, oh, thank heavens, thank you for teaching me how to write an essay. I'm one of the only students who's coping in my first year. And we find that first year, halfway through second year, that they're really just sailing along and going, wow, I can do this. So they're far more equipped. So you can expect not to achieve what you are achieving at the English home language level because you're on a learning curve. I mean, if you knew everything and you were coming into the program going, well, I'm expecting 90s, then actually you're not wanting to grow in the way that we can grow you. So yes, we will stretch you. Okay, we will put you on the rack and we will stretch you because that's what you've signed up for. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's, really the true benefit of further studies programs, in my opinion. It's that growth that you're achieving just in taking the step towards taking these subjects and then challenging yourself to achieve good results in these subjects. Okay, and then just in terms of why you should take further studies programs. So further studies programs, aside from, of course, being able to explore a specific subject a lot further, and there are great benefits to that. But they do also assist your core subject results, because some things will be a little bit easier because you'll find that you're challenged and stretched a lot more in your further studies programs. But also sometimes it helps to just push yourself further in a subject because it gives you the context that you need for your core subjects. And so, we definitely find that learners who take, for example, further studies physics will improve their physical science results. Further studies English will improve their English home language results, for example. And just in terms of university applications, local universities do, it is just a way for competitive degree programs for you to stand out. And so it's a helpful thing to have. It's a separate certificate to your NSC. So it's not necessarily going to drop your average score for those of you who are worried about things like that. However, further studies can count towards your APS score, which I know we'll also chat to, and Chanelle, I'm sure you'll chat to it in your section in a bit. Further studies can count towards your APS score, and so it can really assist in your university applications if this is a subject that you specifically just really excel at, like further studies maths and maths core, for example. And let's say you're taking another subject that you're not really enjoying as much, and maybe you're not performing as well in, further studies maths, for example, could count towards your APS score in place. And then just in terms of just being able to cope in the university context. The university context is very difficult compared to school, and a lot of learners find that there's a bit of a stumbling block going into a completely new environment and being challenged differently. And further studies is just a way of spreading out that pressure as well. So as much as we're challenging you in your school years, we're also taking something like, for example, in the further studies maths space, your maths first year modules are now spread out over grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12, and you're covering those over a 3-year period. Whereas if you were to start at a university level and take a module like that, you would be expected to explore each of those modules and those topics over a single year rather than that 3-year period. And so while we are challenging you in the school context, we are also assisting you and spreading the load from for the elements that you would be expected to cover at a university context, just depending on the degree program that you're essentially applying for and looking to get into. And then we've also got this fact of it helping mid-aptitude learners prepare for university. So again, just on that topic, being able to spread it out over a 3-year period, being able to challenge yourself at a school level a lot further. It certainly is beneficial beyond school, but also in school, as I said, with the core subject results. And then it also extends and challenges strong learners. I know I've spoken to that already. One of the benefits that I really just believe is a very clear one is that learners who are used to achieving high results, it can be very difficult to take that knock and start at a lower level and just excel from there and work your way through a lot more complex topics. And so this is certainly a beneficial subject. It's going to grow you from an emotional perspective as a learner, but also in terms of the items that you're learning and the subjects that you're covering. And then again, it's recognized internationally. So Chanelle, I'd actually love for you to come on here. I know your son was busy exploring this and international studies, and I know that further study subjects are so beneficial in this space.
Absolutely. My children are Cambridge students, and at most universities, some of them want 1 A level, but the majority of them want 3. So if you want to get into the Ivy League kind of university, then you're looking at 3 A levels, and all these further studies programs are the equivalent of an A level qualification according to the UK NARIC, which we had on a previous slide. I think while we're on the slide, Mekayla, I just want to talk to the APS score. You'd have to check in with the specific university, because not all of the South African universities do like to include the further studies programs as part of the APS score, but many of them are now considering it. And also, if you want to, you can substitute any of the further studies programs only for not for English or your second language, whether it's Afrikaans, isiZulu, whatever, and maths. So you can't substitute it for any of those, but any other subjects like life orientation or biology, business studies, etc., you'd be able to substitute one of your further studies program subjects to for that if you're going to get a higher APS score. So you can do that, but only for those. Thank you.
Thank you, Chanelle. Appreciate that and your wisdom on that. Okay, and then who should do further studies programs? So for those of you wondering if this is for me, essentially, you should be considering taking these subjects if you have a strong core subject competency. And to clarify, I know a lot of people or a lot of learners particularly put this kind of pressure on themselves. They feel that in order to have a strong core subject competency, you would have to be achieving 80s and 90s for a subject. But really, it's just if you're achieving above 70% for your core subject, so for example, core maths or physical science or English home language, that is a great mark. And I know, Chanelle, we were also chatting from an English perspective that learners are taking second additional, they're taking English home language first additional subject, and that is perfectly fine to take further studies English, but maybe just clarify the results you would need in that space.
Absolutely, and we would take anyone who's achieving 65% and above, whether it's for English or English home language or English first additional language, because our first additional language students have really surprised us in the past, and they've done exceptionally well. And so we decided to invite them into the program as well, because it's about the grit and just sticking with it. As our grade 12, as our new recruits come in grade 9. One of our first lectures, we always allow the current grade 12 students to address the grade 9s and say, okay, guys, you're going to crash and burn, okay? You're going to get 40% or possibly fail your first exam because it's a learning curve. Remember, that mark doesn't appear anywhere on a report. So it's really just feedback from us to say, keep going. Listen to us. This is how you write the introduction. We give you checklists for what must go into an introduction, what must go into a conclusion, what do you need in a body paragraph in the various essays. So if you just stick with it and you don't become disillusioned, then you can make it. We've had 1 or 2 students who wanted to drop out of the program, and then I've had a personal chat with them, and then one of them at the end of last year said, guys, just stick with it, because I'm so glad I did, because now I have an A level that I never thought I would have had starting out. Okay, so cool. Just stick with it.
Yeah, stick with it, and don't doubt your abilities. I mean, as we say, there's some learners just think that you have to be getting 90s to take a further study subject. The point is, you don't have to be getting 90s. It's really about your mindset. It's about whether you're willing to put in the work. And yeah, just from 70%, that is considered of being strong in a subject. That's very important to note. Chanelle, go for it. I think you want to clarify.
Sorry, yeah, I just see the question in the chat here. Okay, Lesejo, what I'm saying is, say you have 6 subjects and you're applying to university, and your 6 subjects will have a particular APS score. All right. If you do far better in one of your further studies subjects than, for example, biology or business studies or life orientation or one of those subjects, you are allowed to substitute your further studies subject for one of those, and that will increase your APS score. Okay, so I'm not sure if that served you. If you can just give me a thumbs up or say, yes, I understand now, then we can carry on. It's cool. Have we got I'm not sure if you can give me a... Lovely. Okay, perfectly. So, great. Apologies if I wasn't clearer earlier. Cool.
Amazing. Okay, and then just in terms of competitive degree programs, so there are a massive number of learners in South Africa applying to a limited number of universities. Sometimes if you're applying for something like something like a degree in the medical kind of space, that would be a competitive field to enter into, a competitive degree program, for example. And so having a further studies subject there as part of your bouquet, as part of your application, is definitely going to make you stand out compared to some other candidates that may not have that, and who may have the same results as you, and now they're trying to choose between 2. And so further studies is also just a helpful way of giving you a little bit of an extra edge, helping you stand out in that sort of way. And then, as I mentioned, for those who are looking to study overseas, there are a number of universities that actually require a further studies program in order for you to get into certain institutions, and they also are recognized in that space. Okay, so that's really just why you should do it and who should be considering doing further studies. If you are looking to enter into a competitive degree program or looking to study overseas, the likelihood of you needing or benefiting rather from a further studies program is really very high. Okay, and then in the further studies math space, I'm going to just now go into the subject specific points. For those of you who are interested in further studies maths, you might be further studies maths might be the subject for you if you're looking to any sort of to get into any sort of tertiary degree program or course after your school program ends. Then that requires a level of quantitative ability like engineering, accounting, commerce, business science, medicine, technology, and honestly, the list could go on because there are a massive number of programs that would require quantitative ability. Then this is the sort of program that would be beneficial for you. In a lot of these spaces, you're taking a maths course. And so, as I mentioned, further studies maths, you're going to be spreading out the load. Instead of trying to tackle it all in first year, you're really going to be, rather in first year, you're going to be solidifying the knowledge that you've already achieved over the last 3 years where you've taken further studies maths as a subject. Learners who have a strong core maths competency, achieving above 70% for maths. Learners who are interested in maths at all. I mean, further studies maths, I was actually looking at a couple of feedback notes from learners, and a lot of learners on this program were just saying they really, really found an even greater love for the subject than what they had before. And they were already interested in this program, but they were already interested in maths as a subject rather, but this program just really added to their love for maths and helped them to explore the subject in a deeper way. So that's really, really great to have read and heard, as well as feedback directly from the learners. It also improves your core maths results. And so that's just an added benefit in that space. But also for learners who are writing the MAT and the AQL, exam, further studies maths in the MBT space is going to assist you. So you will definitely find that it assists you with being able to cope with your MBT assessment, and just being able to think outside the box that maybe learners who are just taking core maths won't be able to do because they haven't been challenged in the way that you have. And then for further studies maths, like I said, it's really going across grades 10 to 12. The modules that you would be taking, or the subject areas that you would be taking in the subject, are calculus and algebra. But then you also have the option, if you are taking the extended version of further studies maths, you are able to take either statistics, finance and modeling, or graph theory and matrices. So I'm going to just spend a second on this because I know a lot of learners were interested in further studies maths. Since the IEB has moved over to this further studies qualification, this is one of the biggest changes that they made. Further studies maths can now be taken by learners in two different ways. You can take the standard further studies maths program, where you would just be focusing on calculus and algebra as your only modules that you'll cover throughout the year. And at Advantage Learn, we are able to support you in just taking those two modules and carrying them throughout your years from grade 10 to 12. But then we've also got this additional option of achieving further studies extended, is what the IEB are referring to it as, where you can also, in addition to calculus and algebra, you can take either statistics, finance and modeling, or graph theory and matrices. And the benefits of choosing between one of those three fields is that for learners who are specifically getting into a certain tertiary degree program, there might be something here in one of the extended modules that will appeal to you and will help you with your specific degree program. Like statistics, for example, we find that a lot of learners will go for statistics because it's the most widely used across the degree programs. And so that might be an option for you if you're looking to go into commerce, into that sort of faculty, for example, when you are choosing your tertiary institution. And then just to get into further studies physics, again, there were quite a few of you interested in this subject. Further studies physics, again, is for learners who are looking to study a tertiary degree program that requires quantitative or scientific ability. So it can include some of the ones mentioned in maths, like engineering, commerce, business science, medicine, and technology. And yeah, there are just such a huge variety of benefits for taking further studies physics as a program. It's one of the newest IEB subjects, and it's really been widely accepted by learners. Learners are absolutely enjoying this subject. Physics is really, really an interesting space to explore. And yeah, we're just getting such positive feedback from learners who take this subject. You should also be considering this subject if you have strong physical science competency, if you're interested in physics as a subject, and then again, if you want to improve your physical science results specifically. One of the really cool things about our further studies physics program is that your educator who teaches this further studies physics program is actually the first person to have created a further studies physics textbook. And he was also the examiner for grade 12 physical science last year for the IEB. And so essentially he would set the paper for grade 12. He's really an outstanding teacher. He knows so much about the subject. And yeah, just whenever I listen in on those classes, it just sounds so exciting. And so that is a great option and a nice thing to note for those interested in taking this subject. Tyler Rodriguez is his name, and he's actually recently been adopted into a UK school, and so he's been taken on in that side. He's a brilliant educator, and we're super lucky to be working with him. And yeah, like I mentioned, further studies physics is taken by learners from grade 11 to grade 12. You'll start studying the topics from grade 11 and you'll finish them in grade 12. And the areas of study that you'll be focusing on is your analytical skills, thermal physics, modern physics, mechanics, charged particles in electric and magnetic fields, and then also oscillations. Yeah, and it's just, as I say, very, very fascinating subject. And so with that, Chanelle, I'm going to hand over to you. You're going to be the best person to speak to further studies English.
Thanks so much, Mekayla. We have already mentioned quite a few points, so I'm just going to elaborate a little more. But our first point in the slide, where it states any learner looking at any tertiary degree or course that requires effective communication and written ability. Now, you see in brackets there, we have quite a few courses listed. However, I've had many, an actuarial scientist, a doctor, an accountant, potential ones come through my hands over the years. And it's, it doesn't matter what you're going to study at university, there's always an academic essay involved. And that's primarily one of the things that we're teaching. Yes, we're doing it through the avenue of literature and poetry and film and drama. But the fact remains is you need to be able to write succinctly and write effectively in any course that you're going to do. So it just opens up your ability to be able to communicate more effectively. Learners have a strong English home language competency. I have mentioned we accept students from 65% and above, and that would be for first additional language and English home language. Yes, it would help if you had an interest in English literature. So those of you who are avid readers already, most definitely, you are definitely cut out for this kind of course. However, we have had students who've joined us in the past who are joining because they want to read more and they want to be exposed to more challenging texts and challenge themselves on a different level. So that is something that we could offer for you as well. Yes, it does definitely improve your secondary and tertiary English results. Most of our students who are achieving between 60 and 70% for English, for further studies English, are A students for English home language, because there's slightly different skills involved. And yes, we did mention the NBTs earlier. I train the academic literacy part. You don't want me training the maths, okay? So I don't do the quantitative literacy, but I do the academic literacy. And students who do further studies English just have the edge because they have that insight into the questions. They are very difficult questions for the academic literacy, and it's based on vocabulary. So they're testing how extended is your vocabulary. You can change the slide for me. Thank you, Mekayla. Thanks very much. I can't do it on my side. Thanks. Okay, so we mentioned this earlier. There are 4 genres for further studies English. Prose are your novels, drama, the plays, the films. Remember, that's that extra edge that we have as from a South African perspective. And then the poetry in the past, it used to be 2 schools of poetry. So we would choose Victorian poets and romantics or modernists, postmodernists, and it was divided up like that. Subsequently, IB have changed that. And they've now introduced immersions. So on a later slide, I'm going to explain to you what the immersions are. So you can go to the next slide. Thank you, Mekayla. Then I'll talk to that. Okay, so for question 1, there are 3 questions in this exam. And I'm being a little bit pedantic here about explaining what the exam looks like to you, because most people understand and know what further studies maths and physics are about, but they need a little more detail around, okay, what do you actually expect from us? Okay, so you're expected to produce 3 essays in 3 hours. Those essays are between 500 and 800 words. Okay, so that means you can't think about, oh, do I remember the quotation? It's okay, I'm using this one, and it's already there. Okay, so for question 1, you're expected to refer to 2 different genres and discuss 2 texts, either 2 prose and 2 drama, or 2 films and 2 drama, or 2 films and 2 prose, but you only refer to 2 genres. However, we expose you to all 3 genres. So at the moment, our students have been sent a questionnaire, and Natasha Ferrer is my assistant lecturer. She is an alumni student who is currently completing her PhD in ancient Greek. She is a lecturer at the University of Pretoria, and she really understands academia. So she's a great asset to the Further Studies English team. And the fact that she's an alumni student too, she's been through the ropes and she can tell you what she was getting in grade 12 and how you need to stick to it as well. So for question 1, then you would choose, but where the questionnaire is concerned, we've sent out a questionnaire to our students, and we have selected as the lecturers 1 play, 1 film, and 1 novel. And we've then invited the students to choose the other play, film, or novel. So they're going to actually choose what they want to study next year, half of it, okay, 50% of the way. We've also then in that questionnaire asked them, would they prefer to study drama and film next year or drama and prose, and which two genres they'd want to focus on. So the following year, whichever one we're not doing next year, we would then do the following year. So when it comes to further studies English, I would say our latest intake would be at the beginning of grade 11. However, we have 3 grade 12 students who joined at the beginning of this year. And what we did to kind of upskill them and get them ready for all 3 questions was we provided them with all the recordings of the lectures that we held last year for 2 additional texts, which they did self-study. And that's how they were able to achieve being able to write this exam now, which is pending in about 2 weeks' time. And they're all going to do very well. They've done very well in their prelims. So it is possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend latest intake would be at the beginning of grade 11. You can change the slide. Thank you, Mekayla. Right, so the current theme, the Further Studies English as well has a particular theme. So the current theme is actually freedom and responsibility, but from 2023, it's being and being with. Okay, so in other words, it's got to do with identity. As you can see on the slide there, candidates, this comes straight from the IEB subject assessment guidelines. Candidates should use their chosen texts to explore the complex ways that our identities are formed, our inextricable and often troubled ties to those in the worlds around us, and the strategies we employ to bring peace and healing to broken relatedness. So that's quite a mouthful, but basically what we're doing is we're looking at identity, we're looking at the self, other, and the world at large and the universe. Okay, and each text that we study in relation to this particular theme. But I'm mentioning this because it relates only to question 1. Thanks, Mekayla. You can go to the next slide for me. Thank you. Question 2 is the poetry question, and this is where the immersions have now been introduced. Currently, we're doing relationships and identity, but we've changed that next year to marginalized voices and relationships we're keeping. The reason that we've shifted away from identity is because, as I'm sure from the previous slide, you can realize it's very closely related to the theme for question 1. And we don't want the examiners, the IB examiners, to feel like students are just rehashing material or ideas that they've already used in question 1, because that would be a cheap move. Okay, so we've decided to change the move. There are 5 immersions, and we've chosen these 2 for next year. Thank you, Mekayla. All right, and the third question, that's the most exciting question. So our grade 9s and 10s, when they start off, they never write a full exam. The grade 9s, the grade 11s write their first full exam. They have a choice to write it in June, but they then must write it at the end of grade 11 if they're wanting to use that mark that they achieve for that exam to apply to university. But question 3 is very exciting because you choose your own novels. You choose 4 substantial fictional works. We help you with those choices so that you can make informed choices, so that there are rigorous texts. And no, they're not all classics from 19 whenever, okay? They are very often contemporary texts are far better to use. So we encourage more of a modernist approach here. Yes, you can balance it, but we guide you through the process on how to select the texts as well. And for all 3 questions 1, 2, and 3, you respond to a quotation. So it's a multifaceted way of working with intertextuality. So there's a lot of intertextuality, where one text is echoing something in another text, and then you use that to answer a question, and the question that is posed is hinged on a particular quotation by a critic. And then also for question 1, you need to incorporate the theme. So as you can see, it's not an easy exercise, and that's why you need training, okay? So you can't get this right off the bat the first time. You can't come into Further Studies English thinking, okay, well, I can write a literary essay or a literature essay, I'm fine. This is a totally different kettle of fish, okay? And also to compare it to English home language. For English home language, you cover across the space of a year, 1 novel, 1 play, 1 film, and possibly 10 or 12 poems, okay? For Further Studies English, we are covering 2 novels or two texts from 2 different genres. So it's 4 texts, and we are covering 4 poets, and we see you every Friday afternoon, only from 2:45 until 5 o'clock online. So those are our live online sessions that are all recorded. And you will have access to those on the Advantage Learn platform. And every week we provide the students with a set of skeleton notes where you would have to complete information as we're going along so that you are engaging with us throughout. Another feature that we have as part of Further Studies English is our Rocket Chat. So Rocket Chat is an app, and you would just sign up for this app, and we send us short little exercises, probably bi-weekly, every second week. Okay, this week, write an introduction. This is the topic for this particular text. Okay, just so that you're engaging with text. But we have only 2 huge assessments per year: a June exam, a June and a preliminary examination for our grade 12s, and then a June and a November examination for our grades 9, 10, and 11s. Thanks, Mekayla.
Amazing. So before we move off of further studies, English, I just thought I'd mention I've listened into a couple of Chanelle's lessons with Natasha, and it really is quite a unique thing that they've got going in the Further Studies English lesson space, where there are 2 educators that are online at the same time, kind of chatting together through specific topics, sharing different ideas that are related to those topics. And it's really just so beneficial for the subject to have the 2 different mindsets in the room, 2 different opinions, and to really be able to discuss topics and involve the students in those topics at a quite a high level. I know that you ask a lot of questions in your sessions, Chanelle, and it is a very unique subject in that learners are really pulled into it.
It's very interactive. People are constantly in the chat. They're raising hands, they're asking questions. I'm throwing questions out to Natasha going, what's your opinion on that? And Natasha is quite an expert in the philosophy area. So I'm more in the human behavioral area because I train in that area too. But there's quite a deep philosophical content as well that is shared with the students, and that's the part that they actually find most exciting. Often I go, okay, let's bring it back to the text, forget about the philosopher, but it's a lot of fun. We are both online. 90% of the time Natasha and I are one person is lecturing and the other one is there as support. Sometimes I say, okay, Google this, find that out for us, because sometimes they're random questions that are asked, so we need support. So thank you for mentioning that, Mekayla. Great.
Yeah, it really is a lovely subject. As Chanelle said, it's highly beneficial. I know I would have benefited from a subject like this if it were around in my day. And I would have loved to have been in one of your classes, Chanelle. So maybe I'll have to hop into them
and join us anytime.
Yeah. So, this has been super helpful to go through each of the Further Studies programs. Before we end off Further Studies English, I just wanted to speak to English Olympiad. So English Olympiad is highly beneficial for learners who are looking to get into Further Studies English. And the reason why I say this is because our English Olympiad training is taken by Chanelle and Natasha as well. And so you'll be able to get a feel for how the Further Studies English lessons will be. You will also receive a discount off joining Further Studies English by joining us in English Olympiad training and preparation. We're really excited for the partnership in this space. It's a really great opportunity for learners, not just because you're able to explore English as a subject, but benefits outside of that are essentially some prizes, some cash prizes. So you're able to benefit in that space outside of just the subject. And you're also able to benefit from Rhodes University. Chanelle, you might remember the exact number.
Yes, I do. If you're in the, I think it's the top 50, that's right. If you're in the top 50 in the country, and there are over 5,000 students who write this exam annually, then you will receive your first year a scholarship to cover the first year of your study. Yeah,
at Rhodes University.
It's really encouraging. Yeah, and where the English Olympiad is concerned, we so strongly support the English Olympiad that next year will be the first year that we haven't included it as part of the Further Studies English curriculum. And what we decided was we wanted to give the other texts and the poetry some more airtime. We could do a few more poems. We can go more in depth. And so the English Olympiad workshops will now take place on 2 Saturdays. We're boot camp style, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon over 2 Saturdays. and that's how we will prepare you for the exam.
Amazing. Okay, so that's great. In terms of learning streams, so as I mentioned at the beginning of this this webinar, we do have a number of learning streams, and the reason why we provide a number of learning streams is because usually one learning stream is not really what everyone is going to appeal to. It's not going to necessarily be the best for every single person who's looking to take a certain subject. And so we have guided online lessons, which essentially are video lessons. So consider it Netflix, but for these particular subjects, where you'll have your bouquet of video lessons and you'll be able to work through them. You're able to track your progress, complete lessons within or at a pace rather that suits you, at a time that suits you. You'll also be able to rewind and rewatch lessons over and over again. And so there are definitely benefits to the guided online space. The reason why we refer to it as guided online is because we don't just leave you and dump you with the video lessons and expect you to run with that on your own. You will have access to support. We do provide some guidelines on what you should complete and when, so that you're able to prepare for your exams in the further study space. So guided online video lessons will also include physical write-on workbooks for further studies physics and further studies maths. In this guided online space, you will have access to a dedicated online campus. And yeah, it's just really a beneficial stream for learners who have a very, very busy schedule. You still want to take a further studies subject. However, you would prefer to do it in your own time and be able to schedule it appropriately. Of course, you will still have to be highly dedicated as a student to take a further study subject in this way. We do give you as many resources as we can to prepare you well in this sort of fashion. But for learners who are very dedicated and who do have a busier schedule, this is definitely an option that will work well for you. It's not currently available in further studies English, but we will get there. It is available for further studies maths and further studies physics currently. And then in terms of the live online lessons, this is a learning stream that is available across all further studies programs. We've got weekly online live lessons that are taught by further studies educators like Chanelle, who's online with us this evening. And it's taught in this sort of way. So we've got educators that are joining you live online via Zoom. That's the platform that we use. And then again, you will also have a physical write-on workbook for further studies physics and further studies maths. And yeah, essentially these and in the form of skeleton notes as well that are provided weekly. And I know, Chanelle, although we don't have necessarily a textbook for further studies English, it's a completely different subject. So I mean, it's not even a textbook isn't really an option in the space. It changes every single year. You've got all these texts, but we do have skeleton notes in that space. Yeah, I don't know if you want to.
I just want to mention that the reason we don't have a textbook per se is that the syllabus changes every 3 years. So that means the set works change all the time. But what we are working on currently is an exam prep textbook. So that is something that will come into being at the beginning of 2024. And then we'll also have a guided online video option from the beginning of 2024 that we're developing currently, because we've just joined, very recently. So. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, 100%. So Further Studies English is the latest addition to the Advantage Learn Further Studies offerings, and yeah, we're so thrilled to have partnered with Learn to Link in this space. But yeah, we're getting there with Further Studies English. However, I will say that the live online lessons for this subject are absolutely incredible. These are recorded live online lessons. So for learners who aren't able to join at that set time, you will still be able to complete online. You'll be able to review the lesson online in a guided online format, similar to the guided online lesson. So if it is something that you're looking to pursue, please chat to us. And maybe we can work something out if you're a learner who can't make that time. And yeah, we can help you out in that way. And then we also offer in-person lessons, but more specifically for further studies maths, and it's only available in a further studies maths area that we've got in Durban at Westville Boys High School. So if you are joining us from Durban by any chance, and you are looking to take further studies maths, you will be able to take further studies maths in person at Westville Boys High in Westville, if you're joining us from Durban. Okay, and then just some extras to note for further studies is that we have a lot of support that we offer at Advantage Learn. It really is something incredible. We've been teaching online lessons for a very long time, and we've learned what works and what doesn't work and how to assist learners in the best way. So we've got our online campus, which you can actually see over here on the screen, where the video lessons are there, and you'll be able to work through specific video lessons. You'll have a dedicated course where all of your recordings go to for your live online lessons. And yeah, it really is just an incredible platform. And it's something that we're very proud of, and has been able to assist a lot of learners outside of just where we're located directly. It's awesome to be able to connect online in this way. We have program coordinators, we have technical support, classes have dedicated WhatsApp support groups, and then again, we've got this video library and question bank on advantagelearn.com. And as Chanelle mentioned, unique to Further Studies English is Rocket Chat, and that's a great benefit in that space. I know that we are sort of running out of time now, so I'm going to rush through this last section. It's important to note that if you are looking to take the final exam in your grade 12 year, it will be at an additional registration cost in that specific year. In 2022, it's been 1,100 Rand per program, and it essentially just goes up by inflation each year historically, so just something to note and something to plan for. Advantage Learn, we do assist all learners in registering for the IEB final exam, so you won't have to do that yourself. You'll do that via us. And then in order to achieve your certificate, you will have to achieve 50% or higher. So that's one to note. In terms of pricing, these are our different price lists. We've got guided online, live online, and in person. And those prices are different due to the level of support required in each of those learning streams, and just, depending on the nature of the program. In terms of learners who are joining us from partner schools, I know we have a number of schools represented here this evening. You do receive a discount on further studies programs as partnering with Advantage Learn. So if you are joining us and your school's not a partner with us, feel free to reach out to your school, get someone to contact us, or let us know which school you're from, and we can reach out to them from our side. And then, I have mentioned the in-person learning stream note. So we will share all these details with you for how to register. For those of you who do have some additional time now, I think it would be great to go into a Q&A session. So if you need to leave us, it's been awesome to have you online this evening. You will receive the recording of the session, which will include all the answers that we get to in the Q&A. So don't fret if you have to go right now. But we're just going to head on to answer some questions from our parents and learners. Norm will also be sending you through an email with some of the useful links, which includes brochures and extra information and things like that. So you will get that in an email as well. So for those of you who need to leave us, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been lovely to have you with us and to chat with you. For those who have questions, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A, and I see 3 in there already, so I'll get to answering them. Thank you so much. Thank you, Orette. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Lindsay, I'm going to get to your one question. Can a student who is not particularly strong in a specific subject take the subjects? Is there a minimum requirement? You're mentioning 65%, etc. So if my son, for example, receives 50% in maths, are you saying that a further studies program is not for him? So for someone who is achieving 50% in maths, it is unlikely that further studies is an appropriate subject for your child, if that's what he's receiving. What I would instead recommend, Lindsay, I know you mentioned exam prep earlier and asking us to chat more into that. Something like exam preparation. We've also got something called Maths Online, which is maths video resources and things like that. In maths that will support your son. We've got online quizzes and all of that online and digital support that will help him to achieve higher in his core subject results, if that is what your son is achieving. For a learner who's achieving 65%, I know we said 70% is achieving high in a subject, 65%, you would likely be considered for a further studies program, but you'll probably receive a phone call from us and we'll have a chat with you or with your child so that we can just understand the motivation for a further studies program and whether your child has the grit to really just explore these subjects. They are challenging subjects. So it's really, really important to note that they are definitely challenging subjects. So in order to achieve your certificate, you have to get 50%. So if you're unlikely to achieve that 50%, we would not recommend that you join the program. But again, as I say, it is a discussion and we do like to chat with parents. There is an application process for further studies subjects. And so your son is welcome to apply if he's getting something like 65%, and we'll give you a call and chat to you about that directly. Okay, Jenna. Lindsay, sorry, before I move off of you, please shout if I haven't answered any of your questions correctly, or if you'd like any elaboration on anything, just let me know. Jenna, what day and time are the live online lessons for further studies physics? Norma, I'm wondering if you can grab that for us because I'm never going to remember off the top of my head. Further studies physics live online lessons. You can just check, Norm, for grade. I know that all of the live online lessons are different per grade. So Norm, if you can just let us know that. In the meantime, Lebo, can my child take further studies physics in grade 11 if she didn't do further studies physics in grade 10? Yes, Lebo, that is definitely an option. If your child is going to start from the beginning of grade 11 year, we have had learners join. Oh, sorry, you're speaking to further studies physics. Okay, Lebo, further studies physics starts in grade 11. So fortunately, your child hasn't missed out on anything. Further studies math starts in grade 10, but further studies physics starts in grade 11. So actually, that would be very easy to start from grade 11. You'd be starting at the beginning of the program. We have had learners join late. So for example, for further studies maths, we've had learners join in grade 11, for example, and you can catch up. You are able to catch up via video lessons and that sort of thing. And we have had learners who are able to do it if they are of the mindset that they're ready to tackle these challenging subjects. Okay, we've got some more questions coming through. Norma, if you can just grab those further studies physics, I don't know if maybe you can pop them in the chat, Norma, I'll be able to see them there. I accidentally closed that question. Okay, Jamie, hi there, my son is in grade 10 now. When did you recommend him to take further studies maths? So Jamie, I think that speaks to my previous point. If he's in grade 10 now, that means he's finishing his grade 10 year and he hasn't joined a further studies maths program. He can start with us from grade 11. We'll be able to get him caught up on grade 10. But again, it depends on his core results, his core subject results in maths, and to see whether he'll be able to cope with catching up that program. But also it'll depend on whether he is ready to take on the catch up plus the new year. So certainly please feel free to apply. We will send through those notes. However, yeah, we'll chat to you one-on-one. That's the sort of thing that we chat to you one-on-one. Yeah, once we receive your application, it will go through the process. Okay, perfect. Does anyone else have questions? You're welcome. Okay, so Lindsay, I'm going to Lebo, sorry. Will her further studies in your program count in addition to her matric results? Okay, Lebo, so essentially it depends. So further studies, as we said, it can you can substitute for some institutions, for some universities, they will allow you to substitute a further studies program for a different subject, as long as it's not your core subjects in school. However, it would depend on the results that you get for that subject. So that could count as replacing a specific results. It won't count towards, on your NSC certificate, you won't see further studies maths or further studies physics on your NSC certificate because it's a separate IEB certificate. So that's just an important one to note there, which is beneficial in a way because if you aren't achieving the best result in further studies English, it's not lowering your NSC certificate overall score. And you've got this extra certificate to add to your university applications. Lindsay, exam preparation. What I'm going to do for exam prep is I'm going to ask Norm if you can send Lindsay some additional details if you haven't already sent her some details on exam prep. Jenna, is Epworth High one of your partner schools that receive a discount? Jenna, I will chat to you directly. I will email you tomorrow morning first thing about Epworth High and give you some context there. But yeah, essentially schools who have been invited to the session this evening are either already partnered schools with us, or perhaps your school is looking to partner with us. So we'll give you more context there directly. Okay. Okay, so for further studies physics this year, for grade 12, we had further studies physics taking place on a Wednesday from 5:30 to 7 o'clock in the evening. And for grade 11, it's the same time, but it just took place on a Thursday. So you might think that that sounds quite late. It does probably seem a bit odd, but what we like to do is we like to cater for learners who are taking sports and extracurricular activities directly after school, and then they can still take further studies programs in addition to their sports or other extracurricular programs. And I will reach out to you about Epworth. Thank you so much for your question. Okay, does anyone else have any questions? I'm going to give it a second. I know we've still got quite a few people online, so perhaps you're frantically typing. I'll give it a minute. But it's been lovely to have all of you online this evening. If you do have any additional questions outside of what we've just covered now, please do feel free to reach out to us. You can email info@advantagelearn.com. I wish I could type it out to you, but Norma is going to send you an email, so you'll be able to see our contact details there. And yeah, you'll be able to reach out to us with any additional questions that you have. I don't see any coming through, so thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Chanelle, for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Norm, for your support this evening. Appreciate you. Okay. Thanks so much.
Great. Nice to have chatted to everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Mekayla.